On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Annette Kruschek to the Buck and Honey's remote studio. Annette is a devoted wife, mother of 8, and someone who knows both the joy and heartbreak of family life. Annette shares her story of building a big, loving family, navigating health challenges with her adopted children, and surviving loss when their youngest daughter, Evelyn, passed away unexpectedly in 2021. Through it all, Annette and her family are surviving and thriving because of their strong family bond. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are, whatever you are doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast and get access to previous episodes on Facebook at Survive and Thrive 8791, the podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects, such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. And this is where we get into introducing the episode and our guest sitting right next to me. According to the internet, and the internet is always right. Correct, Annette?
Correct.
Correct. I don't need the internet. I don't need Alexa. I got my wife, and she's always correct. So I don't need any of that. Smart man. According to an AI artificial intelligence overview, congenital heart disease, CHD, is the most common birth defect affecting nearly 1% of births in the United States, or about 40,000 babies each year. Today's guest and her family would be greatly affected by CHD, congenital heart disease, in the worst way possible. And she's brave, and she's a fighter, and she's here to talk about that today. Today, I welcome Annette Kruschek to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Raised in southeast Wisconsin, Annette would spend her early years in East Troy and Burlington, Wisconsin. She would attend Burlington Catholic High School and is a proud Hilltopper. After graduating from high school, Annette would take her talents to the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, where she met her wingman, Dan, who would become her husband. She's an author, a marathon and triathlon athlete, small business owner, and hobby farm owner.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Today, I'm so glad you could join us, Annette Kruschek. What is up?
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is so cool. You didn't have to go very far, did you?
No, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from you.
Hop, skip, and a jump through up and over the hill, and
that's right,
through the forest, and here you are.
That's right.
Summer is in full swing, and because of that hobby farm, which we'll talk about, the number of small animals and beasts that you have on the property. What's been keeping you busy this summer?
Every time I think I have a free moment, it fills up with my lovely children and my crazy critters.
Are you still in graduation season?
Oh, my heavens, yes. Isaac just graduated, and last week we went up to Eau Claire to go for his orientation. Oh,
UWEC.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to follow his mom to UW.
He looked at it, but he wanted to spread his wings differently. So that was nice. Hattie is purchasing a home, which is exciting, and she closes on that in a few short weeks. And Charlie is going to be moving to Colorado, Fort Collins.
We're going to talk a little bit about storm chasing Charlie.
Yes.
Any big plans for the summer?
Moving Charlie. Okay. That's going to be a big one. We may take the whole family. We're deciding. The whole family is going to convoy up by Hattie. And any chance we can get when there's these big milestone moments, we like to be together for those types of things. But, with all of our animals, we forget sometimes, I don't know if we can leave for too many days. But we've got some good friends and live in the country, and they're willing to help.
Yeah, that's good. Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you cook dinner?
always for the big herd.
What is your favorite genre of cooking? Are you Italian? Are you Mexican? Are you Jamaican? Are you...
My kids love vegetables, so it sounds really crazy, but we go to the Asian market and they love bok choy, they love broccoli,
really?
pea pods. Yes, and they've taught me how to eat healthier because they love that type of food. The air fryer is going all the time, so don't think like we are this ultra family with health, because Isaac and Eli are always putting chicken nuggets or very unhealthy stuff.
You don't have to bury the peas in some mashed potatoes or gravy.
No, we don't have to hide it.
With their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Wanakee, and Mount Horeb. Most communities in the Dane County area, which encompasses Madison, Wisconsin, and the surrounding area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. So we're doing a little drum roll. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
I have, yes.
You have. And with those 4 locations, which one have you been to?
Wanakee.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a favorite dish or meal?
Wings.
Wings. Yeah, I'm a big pizza guy, so I like the pizza. On the podcast, our guests follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like, and that's history, and what happened to get Annette on the podcast. And in segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened, get into what it's like or what is it like now, and discuss Annette's 5 suggestions for thriving. You were born in East Troy, Wisconsin, and eventually migrate to Burlington for kind of high school, etc. What was life like growing up for Annette? Annette Price.
Yes, Annette Price. It was wonderful. I loved my childhood. It was those simple things in life I was explaining to you earlier. Spend the summer in my swimming suit going down to the local beach, and then hop on my 10-speed bike with my friends down the road, and we would go and buy Swedish fish at the little local ice cream candy store.
My mouth is watering right now. Swedish fish.
Yeah, they're the best. Penny of fish.
Penny of fish.
Yeah.
Those are the simpler times.
Yes.
You and your friends do the breakfast, get home for lunch when the whistle when the whistle would go off downtown. That said, all right, we got to go home and eat, and then stay out until the first lights of the flickering lights of the street lamps. Popping on.
And in the winter when you couldn't be outside, we would be outside. We'd put our snow pants on and go to the local hill, and stay there way too long.
Quite the one extreme to the other. You got barely any clothes on when you've got a swimsuit on, and then you've got a coat that's rated for 150 degrees below zero, and snow pants and boots, and
definitely.
That's what we love Wisconsin, don't we?
That's right.
Tell us about your massive family growing up. Mom and dad and siblings.
Mom and dad, 6 brothers, a sister. And then I was the caboose.
You were the baby.
I was the baby, 9 years behind everybody else. My oldest brother is 20 years older than me. So when I was born, people were already moved out and beginning to get married, start their own lives. So it was, I craved holidays because I could see my whole family come together. And my mom would set up a dining room and the kitchen with, really beautiful dishes. I still remember that. And I would look out the window just waiting for my siblings to come. It was so fun.
All right, like on Good Will Hunting, I'm going to ask you to rattle off, if you can, let's see how quick you can do it, rattle off from the oldest to the next youngest. Ready, set, go.
Larry, Frank, Meredith, John, Marty, Bill, Fred, and Annette. That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. That was very similar to Good Will Hunting. He rattled off all his brothers and sisters as well.
Yeah.
You have an amazing family of your own, an amazing husband, who we mentioned briefly, Dan, and you can talk about him, and 8 children of your own. Spin some yarns about them.
Okay. Well, my husband, I call him my wingman. Couldn't do life without him.
But who rides shotgun? Does he ride shotgun? No,
I do.
Okay.
No one likes my driving abilities.
Lead foot like most women?
Oh, I'm just kind of distracted and all over, so it's gotten worse.
Squirrel.
Yes. So my license will be taken away before I'm probably 60. So, yeah, Dan is wonderful. We've been married for 28 years now. Like I said, we met in college, and it was from that moment on. Well, and I'll mention the 1 year that we had to take a break because he broke up with me on Valentine's Day. But, it is what it is.
On Valentine's Day of all times.
We call it Blackout Day.
Blackout Day.
So we don't celebrate it. But anyway, yes. And then with my 8 children, I think it's just full circle here. I've got this big span of kids, just like I did growing up. 4 boys, 4 girls. It's the same thing. Like I look at my kids looking forward to the holidays, and I'm using those same beautiful dishes my mom did and setting the table just the same that she used to do it.
Well, when you learn from the best, how can you not?
Oh.
We can only mess up after that.
You're so right.
Yes. You would attend Burlington Catholic High School class of 1991, and you're a proud Hilltopper. What were you involved in high school?
Well, I wanted to be involved in everything, just because I was pretty social. And if I wasn't involved in it, I remember during the yearbook, they were taking pictures. I would just sit in on the picture.
So you're plastered all over the Hilltopper yearbook?
Yes. Well, it was a small school, so obviously they knew, like, no, Annette, you're not an FFA. No, Annette, hop out of there. But no, I was involved in basketball, which was funny. I only made a couple of baskets, but again, it was more social for me. I was involved in theater. I did 1 acts.
Oh, yeah.
I was involved in pom-poms all 4 years, just because I liked the aspect of, music and having fun with my friends.
Cheering and supporting.
Yep. I think that was basically it. Oh, I did the powder puff thing, Yeah.
After high school, you would take your talents 32 miles down the road to the University of Wisconsin, Whitewater. What was the lure to Whitewater?
Teaching.
Teaching.
Yes. And it was nice and close. My sister-in-law attended Whitewater, and she was a fantastic teacher. And I never ventured out, didn't tour other schools. That's just where I wanted to go.
You would start working private school in Wanakee, which was St. John's, and you taught elementary, used that degree to good use by teaching first grade. What are some of your favorite memories from teaching St. John's?
I would say I loved having kids during their show and tell time. I loved that because the kids, and I did this morning sharing with the kids where they could come up to the chalkboard and if there was anything they wanted to talk about. And so I loved that. I loved full circle seeing now my students become teachers or become parents. That's been super rewarding, and still being able to stay in touch with them. But in kindergarten and first grade, those were the 2 levels that I taught. Seeing that light bulb turn on about reading, and I love art. So we did a lot. We made our own books, big, huge books. And at the end of the year, everybody was able to take one of these books home with them. So that was pretty special. I have to share a really quick, good story about a show and tell. A little girl, she came in, and she's also a teacher now too, but she came in and she had a white garbage bag, and she said, "Mrs. Kruschek, can I just show my show and tell? Or I don't want to tell you what it is. It's a surprise." And I said, "Okay." And I knew her parents pretty well, and I was like, okay, this is not going to be something horrible. But so the rule was you get to come and sit next to me on my rocking chair. I had a little rocking chair next to me. And so everybody's anticipating what is in this garbage bag.
And so are you. and so am I right now.
Yes. And so finally she wanted to wait and be last. So finally it's her turn, and she's opening up this garbage bag, and she said, she pulled out a prosthetic leg. She said, "My grandpa got a new leg. And my mom said I could bring his leg in." And it had a tennis shoe attached to it. And I was thinking, her parents were just loving that in the morning. heading out the door going, oh, I can't wait to hear Mrs. Kruschek.
I would have loved to have seen the look on some of those kids' faces as soon as you pull that out of the bag.
Everybody's jaw was on the ground. And then it was like this, can I hold it? Can I touch it?
Can I play with it?
Yep. So she got her grandpa's leg.
That is a story. That's one I have not heard.
I didn't think so.
That is going to definitely...
Thanks for letting me deviate.
That's not going to end up on the floor. When we do the edits, that's going to be in there.
Okay.
In 1997, you and Dan would start your family, and that family would eventually grow with 8 children. Mm-hmm. Did you want a big family like the one you grew up in?
Well, I used to say to Dan when we were dating, 5 would be a fun number. And he was like, oh, okay.
5, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he just was entertaining me. Like, oh, okay, yeah. He's one of 2. And so then when we had Hattie and Charlie only 15 months apart, I was like, whew.
We're done. Boy and a girl.
This is a lot of work. Yeah. But then all of a sudden it was like, I think it was like 5 years later, 6 years later. No, I should know this. Hattie was in first grade, and that's when I felt like, I think it would be nice
Got the itch.
to have more. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know my basketball coaches the same way. He had three older kids, and then I think they waited 5 or 6 years, and then the floodgates opened again, and they had a couple of girls. So that is a little bit of gap. Mm-hmm. The last of your children, Evelyn, would enter the world on January 12th, 2017. Mm-hmm. Your little angel had the zest for life, which radiated through her larger-than-life smile and contagious spirit.
Yeah.
Do you agree with all those?
Absolutely. Her mouth was humongous. Her mouth. And, in size it was really big, but just the way she would demand our attention, it was huge.
And talk and do all of those things. Yeah. And then 4 short years later, which we'll get into in a little bit, your lives would change because our listeners want to hear your story and what happened. I need to talk about the sponsor one more time. Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask, why Buck and Honey's? Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. Everything changed in the middle of the night, February 25th, 2021. Evelyn went into cardiac arrest and passed away. You'll hear about that tragic story and how Annette and her family have survived without their little angel in segment 2. So please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. The podcast is where we feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Annette Kruschek's family endured what no family should have to, and that is the loss of a child. She is here today to share how she has survived and thrived since that fateful day in 2021. Annette hopes her story will help those who might experience what her family has so far. Besides your youngest, Evelyn and her heart disease. Your next two youngest children also have heart defects of their own. And you talked about you had a number to describe how many surgeries that your three youngest kids have had. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Sure. With the three children, there's 7 surgeries total between the three of them. Every surgery, some people would think it's like easier, or you know what you're getting into, but no surgery is the same. No outcome is the same, obviously. And it's nerve-wracking, to say the least, for each surgery. But our support system over at American Children's Hospital in Madison has been our family, and they've walked us through every surgery. They were very well planned out ahead of time. In fact, one of their, they would meet on Fridays to discuss surgeries, and it just so happened, and this has never happened at the hospital before, leave it to the Kruscheks to change things up.
Start things differently.
Yeah. Claire and Lewis, it was told they could have their surgeries a week apart from each other. It's called a Fontan surgery, and it was one of these surgeries that you don't quite know how long they're going to be in the hospital. But we thought, okay, they are each other's biggest support system. So let's try to see if we can do this. And sure enough, they both went into surgery a week apart. So as one was coming out, getting off of some of the tubes and things like that, the other one was going into surgery. And they actually, Dan and I were all 4 of us were in the ICU room together. They had a double room. So Claire was with me and Lewis was with Dan at the foot of the bed. We were looking at each other, and we both looked at each other and say, living the dream, aren't we?
Living the dream. 3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
Nice roof over your head.
That's right.
But I'm sure you'd rather have done it anywhere else but that hospital.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask, just because I do know that once in a while I'm glad we have American Family Children's Hospital here to do some of that, and they were able to handle that. Was there ever any situation where we don't know if we can handle this, we might have to send you to Mayo, we might have to send you to
Boston or things like that, yeah.
Or St. Jude. Never any of that?
There certainly were these, with Evie, there were certainly discussions with the head surgeon, and he was always very honest. He was beyond capable. He's gifted, but he wanted to make sure that he had enough information and that he talked enough with everybody. And he did give us the choice if we wanted to go to Boston. And we said no. We knew, and it wasn't just about, we would be out of our comfort zone. And it was more, we needed that team of doctors and nurses with us. In fact, preparing for Evie's surgery, they made a 3D mold of her heart. That's something they gifted us, and that's in our curio cabinet at home, is her actual heart, the mold.
Oh, really?
Very special, yeah.
Since the show has a mental health component to it, and we talked a little bit about this before we started, that anxiety was probably maybe ramped up during this time because you already mentioned you don't know what to expect for each surgery. The 7 surgeries, no 2 are exactly the same. You may have you mentioned also having some anxiety prior to that. And then certainly the surgeries and realizing what lay ahead for you. Let's talk about your anxiety. What were some of the symptoms or some of the things that were going on with you?
It took the tragedy to make me really realize that my anxiety had always been a part of my life since I was young. But I just thought that was my personality, of being overly nervous about things or really quick when I would do something. And then it took all of a sudden this heightened experience of all of these heart surgeries where I found myself just doing different things with trying to manage the kids, and in ways that I never used to, that I had to take a step back, and I reached out to one of my doctors and just said, this is going on and I don't understand it. And it was before Evie passed away, so I thank God that I had reached out about that. But certainly leading up to all of these surgeries, I would find myself involving myself in so many different things that was unnecessary because I wanted to busy myself so I didn't have to think about what was really going on. I would fill my days with what seemed trivial now, but I felt like it was necessary, and I realized now I was really running away from my own thoughts.
And that's a lot of people use that as a distraction, as a coping skill. They knit, they play solitaire, they play cards. That was going on. How about, I know with my anxiety, one of the things that I found was, the racing heart, my heart feeling like it was going to burst out of my chest. But the biggest one for me was insomnia. Always being up at night and, writing things down and then my thoughts racing. Similar with you?
Mine, I think I raced so much during the day that I would just fall asleep from exhaustion. But mine was if I was away from my kids for a certain amount of time, even if it was to go to the grocery store, and I would come home, as I would turn in the driveway to go up the driveway, I would start to feel panicky. What did I miss? Is everything going to be okay at home? As silly as it sounds, is the house going to be a huge mess and then I have to run around and clean? So many things. So I would feel a sense of panic getting home, and because I wasn't in control. And I remember a specific time when my kids were doing online school because of COVID, and my daughter was just doing her math homework with colored pens, gel pens. But I went upstairs to make sure that everybody was doing all of their online school, and I could see her just neatly doing her math, but she was using these gel pens. And I said, you can't do that. That's not the right way to do it. And I walked away from there realizing, like, why did I just get so nervous about colored pens for math?
Did I just say that and do that?
Yes. I walked away feeling like this is not normal. And I think it was probably soon after that I reached out to my doctor and I said, I'm doing things that just I don't think are normal.
So during these times of struggle, then, you already talked about some of the coping skills that you were using. Who did you lean on for support?
During these anxious bouts, I didn't tell anybody. My husband, who knows me very well, I think he just thought it was my personality to be more like hyper and, just involving myself in a lot of things. The kids might say the same thing too. So I was pretty private about that. But then when Evie passed away and my anxiety, I still remember after she had passed away, and it was February, we had a lot of snow. We have an in-ground trampoline in our backyard, and we had a lot of snow that was just sitting on the trampoline. No big deal. But I went out there with a shovel, and I was shoveling snow.
And you made it a big deal.
I made it a huge deal. And there was ice that had built up on this, and I was using the shovel as like an axe of some sort. And I could see a few of my kids looking out the window like, what is she doing?
Did she just do that?
Yeah. I think I was out there for a couple of hours getting snow off of a trampoline. But so when Evie passed away, I knew I needed some sort of therapy, and I immediately searched for a therapist. I thought I needed it for my kids, and thank God I did need it for my kids, but I needed it so much for myself. And it became my Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, 7 to 8. All the kids knew that, and it was a video, which was it was very helpful. It was FaceTime, Zoom. And so it was helpful because the kids knew, Mom's in therapy, everybody has to be quiet. That saved my life.
So did you start to notice when you started to unpack, start digging up and using kind of that shovel of what has been bothering me during this time and maybe all of these years, and you started to talk about it? We, again, talked before that you are the youngest of your 8 kids in your own family.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap. You also grew up in the 70s and 80s where we don't talk about that. That's
Absolutely.
Family. We suppress it. We just bury it and we move on. Did your demeanor start to change once you started to talk about your anxiety?
Oh my gosh. Well, I used to say, carrying grief around is like carrying a weighted blanket on me. It's 50 pounds of just anxiety feels that way too. It feels heavy and it feels like it just follows you. Like I said to you earlier, I didn't know that that's what that was that I was carrying. I just thought that that was my personality. And now that I realize situations that would cause me anxiety now, I feel so free. Like even coming here, I'm prepared, but I don't prepare because I tell myself, this is just me, like be me. And I think I was such a people pleaser for so many years that caused me anxiety. I wanted a morsel of everybody's time, even if, I wanted a lot of people's times, but just to get a morsel would be good enough for me. As, growing up with this large family, I just wanted attention. So I was always chasing something. And now that I'm not chasing and I'm just calm, I see things so differently.
And you realize that, hey, I'm not the only one that is trying to control things at home. I'm not the only one that when they pull in the driveway, there's a little bit of panic and fear of what I'm going to walk into, that there's other people that go through the same stuff. And I think I always talk about the bit and the ate. For me, the bit was before I talked, B-I-T. I was anxious and tired and whatever, and then ate, A-I-T. After I talked, things were so much better in my life because I wasn't carrying around that, like you said, weighted blanket. Now it's just a light blanket that I can use to keep me warm and make me feel warm and cozy, and it's always with me.
Yes.
But it's a lot less. It's a lot lighter. February 25th, 2021, you said everything changed in the middle of the night. Take us through as much as you want, as little as you want. What happened on that particular day?
Yeah. And we've been really private about it for so long because, I think there are many people that wondered, well, how did Abby pass away? She went into a cardiac arrest. We found out later through an autopsy that she had a tiny tumor, not that went undiagnosed because this girl had every test under the sun, before surgeries. But after her last surgery that she had on December 14th, prior to February, this tiny tumor was growing. It was on her adrenaline gland, and extremely rare, total Evie fashion. It's found more in adults, older adults, and very, very seldom on children. And so Evie went into what was called an adrenaline surge in the middle of the night, and her heart began racing. Evie shared a room with us. She had a crib in the corner of our room, and now that crib is on our front porch, and it's turned into a beautiful, like a day bed that we can all sit on. And it's actually in the same spot where her crib was. It's just on the other side of the wall on the porch, so it's really quite perfect. But Evie gave us signs in the middle of the night that something was wrong, and so we'd been down this road before, Dan and I, where we just realized, I think we need to take her in. And so that's what we were preparing for. It became increasingly noticeable that things were, ramping up in the wrong direction, and we made a call to have the ambulance come out. And since we were new at our house, we didn't know how long it was going to take, but we just felt like this is necessary this time. Charlie, at the time, he's still living with us, but he was in his room, and you did the typical thing. Charlie, can you get the kids up in the morning for school? We got to take Evie to the hospital. And Dan and I were such a team that we do it all together, always. So as the ambulance came, it became very clear that Evie was in distress, but she didn't look it, but breathing wise, we were realizing there was an issue. She got in the ambulance Dan rode with. I followed behind. It became very obvious when the ambulance pulled over, and I jumped in the ambulance right away, and Dan and I have this thing with each other during surgeries or in a time of an emergency situation. He will look at me and he'll give me this assurance with his eyes. I will just know, like, it's going to be okay. He looked up at me and it wasn't that look. It was a different look that time. They had us get out of the ambulance because they needed more people in, and a fire truck came. I can't say enough about the paramedic, the EMS. Everybody was just well-oiled machine. We followed the ambulance to the hospital, and when we got there, this is how I'm telling you this hospital is our family. They knew when they called it in, they knew that was Evie, and people on 4th floor of the ICU, not just one, but several of them came down, and they had the people in the ER move out, and then they took over for Evie. I just remember my husband saying to me outside of the emergency room, we were standing there with our winter coats on. They're offering us a place to sit, and we said no, and Dan just said, don't overreact to anything right now because they might move us out, and we just wanted to be right there, as difficult as that was. So one of the doctors came out, and he basically was telling us that, they had performed CPR, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes or so the whole way. He said, we've done all of these things. And my husband just said, so what you're telling me is she won't survive. And he said, that's what I'm telling you. We walked in there together and it was very calm. My husband, I just don't even know how we did what we did. I don't even know it. The things that we did that I would look at another family and say, how did you do that? It's for the love of a child so much that you just scoop up your child. And he picked her up and he sang Edelweiss to her because that was his bedtime song to Evie. We had that moment together, and she had already passed away. I can tell you, though, for absolute certainty in my stomach, when I was in the ambulance, there was this big digital clock above the back doors, and it said 4:44 and 47 seconds. And I was like, that's so unique. It's just all these fours. At that moment, they were telling us that we were going to have to get out. And I said to somebody, because I was down by Evie's feet at that moment, and I said, please just don't stop. Please just do what you need to do. We got out, and fast forward to about, 2 months, 3 months later, I had asked if that same group of paramedics, the doctors or the EMS team, could come out to our house. I wanted to see them face to face and
cook them a vegetable dinner.
Yes. And I said they had never been invited to come to someone's house before, especially a child that had passed away. And they said, we leave a call and we don't know how things end. He said, we actually called the hospital because it was such a tough situation. While we had them on our porch, I was recognizing some of them, but I'm asking them for their names. And there was this woman there, and I thought she was the dispatcher because I was on the phone with a woman. And she said, no, you were right next to me by your daughter's feet. And you said to me, please don't stop. And she said, I've never made a promise to someone. And she said, I promised you I wouldn't. And I said, what's your name? And she said, Elizabeth. And that's my mom's name who passed away. And I'm telling you, at 4:44, I just feel like there was this something very special at that moment of pure tragedy. I don't know if I should use the word special, but something inside of me gave me this sense of there's somebody else there with her.
Maybe your mom was there in some way, some shape or form.
Oh, yeah. Evie's been extremely clear with me, sending me signs. She was a Band-Aid girl. She loved Band-Aids. And so I can't tell you how many times. My husband just put on an athletic shirt the other day, and there's a Band-Aid stuck to the back of the shirt.
Since Evelyn's passing, you shared with me in some notes that you sent that you have made a commitment. What commitment is that since she's passed?
To be brave like Evie. Evie had a phrase. It was 3 words, 3 little words. I so brave. And that's what I've got on my arm. My tattoo is I so brave.
It sounds like a little kid response. I so brave.
Yes. I think for so long we would remind our kids how brave they were. When Evie would get a shot, we'd say, "You're so brave, Evie. You're so brave." I have these beautiful videos of, "Evie, tell your story." I would always say that, "Tell your story. I so brave." She passed the baton over to our family, and now it's our turn to be brave like Evie. I'm committed to stepping out of comfort zones, living each day as if it's my last, being very in the moment with people I love and not over scheduling myself.
People should live their life like that because really do we know, hey, I'm going to pass away in about a week.
Right.
So I'm going to make the most of the next 7 days. But if you apply that to your day, and like you said, if you're with a loved one, you make the most of that time because you don't know if there's going to be a second time. But living it as if it's the last is, I think, some very, very good sound advice. You also said the last 4 years have been like carrying a weighted vest earlier around, and grief is heavy, and it never leaves you. So during that time, you had talked about some coping skills. What other new coping skills have you used since that time?
I find things that just really nurture me. Being outside is huge for me. Being with my animals is really good. I take time for myself because it's like I always say, "Oh, my tank is getting empty. I need to fill my tank back up." And it's not selfish to take care of ourselves.
I was very much the same way you were. Always wanted to people please, always wanted to be liked or be accepted into the group. And I thought that was the way. It's interesting now that when I take care of myself and my physical well-being and emotional and spiritual well-being, that I have made more of an impact or enjoyed my relationships with all sorts of people that I run into, that it just seems so much better than when I was focusing on them first and me second. Yeah. I'd never get to myself doing it that way.
And you feel like, oh, we're supposed to be selfless. We're supposed to give. But if you give, it's like when I work out, if I'm not fueling my body with some food, my workout is horrible. So you have to fuel yourself.
You are so brave. Fighting for your family all of these years and your kids is really inspiring. And I know that if I ever have a situation where things might get tough, I'm going to think you'll be one of the people I think about because you've had to endure a lot in your young age, and you've come through it. And people have said, well, I'm not. I don't feel like I'm thriving. From the outside looking in, I think you are thriving. You have an amazing life, and you're so busy. I'm going to rattle off some things that that I see you smiling right now, that have made me smile as well. Yeah. You started a nonprofit organization which helps families within a small village in Guatemala, and that started that got the snowball rolling of doing things. I'm better now, mentally, physically, emotionally. So I'm going to start giving some of that energy to other things. You want to talk about that quick?
Certainly. That was right at the time that we were getting ready to adopt Nora. My hairdresser, actually, she had gone to Guatemala several times, and I could see pictures when she was cutting my hair. I could see these beautiful pictures of her with these children. And I said, maybe I wonder if
How do you do that?
Could I come along? And she said, "Oh, Annette, I would love it." And at that time, Hattie was going into 7th grade. Hattie had this heart for people too. And so we thought, well, let's just, we'll take a few bags of some clothing and toothpaste and things like that. And we went there, and I was so changed. Not feeling like, oh, I'm going to save the world. No, not at all. It's about they were welcoming us, and I felt like they're the poorest of the poor, but they were happy. Like that is when you realize you don't need stuff. They were so happy. That feeling of what could we do to help, to not feel like, oh, we're just making ourselves feel better. We're going to give them things and then walk away. No, how could we make it a difference for them? And we thought of this idea of my mother-in-law loved to sew. And so we thought, let's see if we can get some sewing machines. And they've got the ability, of course, but they were doing it. It was taking forever. So let's try to give them some things that they can put back into the economy and create, some things. And so we bought sewing machines there the second time we went. My brother was into solar power. He brought some of his things so they had electricity. We donated mattresses, groceries. And when people would say to me, Annette, we would be able to give you more, but if you were a nonprofit, you could come into all of these different businesses. So that's what started that. And it's called Solely Inspired, because everyone's like, I'm so inspired by it. Really, it's what's in your soul. One person, you can make a difference, became a wonderful thing. And then it evolved into, we're adopting, and then 2 years later adopting, and then adopting and adopting. And so Solely Inspired is still there, but we haven't done anything. And since COVID, we haven't been able to go back. And then I just put my passion into some other things, obviously my children.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to talk about a couple of these things. So you found the time to co-author a book, and we'll make sure we put the links to the book and some of the things I'm going to share out about the episode. And the book is called You Can, You Will, which documents your personal story of losing a child at the young age of 4 years old. You want to take 60 seconds to talk about that? You
bet. So I love to blog, and I have a blog called Mom's Apple Cart.
We'll have to make sure we put that in there as well. Okay.
Writing is that's my way of just really getting everything out that's in my head. And I write as if no one's listening. But obviously people were listening. People were reading my blog, and it was shared with somebody who they were looking for somebody to co-author. And so I'm in this book with 13 other authors, and it's ranging from the death of a child to depression to suicide. And it's these stories that are inspirational. And I basically just said, I would love to have a chapter in it. And through that, I met some wonderful people, and I've made other connections. Sharing Evie, right? Just sharing her bravery.
Kind of similar to different format, but similar to the podcast that I have, is that some of these people that you co-authored with, I'm sure, went through some times where they had to survive something.
Yes.
And we're not going to put a grade on each one of them, because they all affect everybody the same way. Tragic, grief, whatever. And then how they've come out of that and thrived. And and some people have gone through those kinds of things like you did, and they don't survive, and they don't thrive. And I'm so glad that you're here to be able to give some people some hope and inspire them that despite what happened, they can too get through.
Yes.
You mentioned that you're a marathoner and also have done some triathlons. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, that's so funny. Me being a marathoner is like me being a hobby farmer. Everyone's like, what? So really not being athletic at all. It's mind-blowing to me that I can run 26.2 miles. After Charlie was born, I was eating a few of the fries with him and the Happy Meals and things like that. And so I just thought, I'm just going to see what this treadmill is all about. And my husband was like, oh, you're making a New Year's resolution,
I'm sure that'll be over in about 3 weeks.
Yep. But then my personality is like, if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to do this. So I started with a 5K, and that was fun. And then I pushed myself a little bit more, and I thought, I'll train for a half marathon. And then when I did that, and I could feel my body getting stronger, that was a feeling that I'd never experienced before. And so then I thought, I'm going to train, and I love structure. I love routines. I love schedules. So sure, I can make a 16-week schedule with Hale Higdon. Let's go. So that's what I started. And then after I did 1 and 2 and 3 marathons, I thought, I've got 8 kids. I'm going to do 8. And I put each child down on my arm, and I broke it up into 26 miles, and I used each 3 miles. And then the last 2 miles were my husband and I but I used those 3 miles to think about each specific child. I started doing just these small sprint triathlons, but nonetheless, it was something that I had never done before. So I got out there on this big, huge bike, and I see all these other people with these small little bikes. But I was out there, and I was doing it, and I was having fun. So yeah, I like to push myself in directions that people can't believe.
I'm going to use the book title, You Can and You Will.
That's right. That's right.
And there's more you're going to add on to this, but I want to talk about you and your husband operate a hobby farm.
That's right.
And when I think about it, I'm just kind of chuckling to myself, and hopefully you're laughing with me and not looking at me and saying,
no,
dude, what's wrong with a hobby farm? But
no.
I'm going to give some statistics here.
Yeah.
Hang on, people. She has 16 goats, 1 horse, 3 donkeys, 12 chickens, 10 cows, and a slew of kitties.
We named it Sunset Acres where we live.
Sunset Acres, okay.
And that was really Evie because on our front porch, I have a beautiful picture of her looking out the windows, and the sun is going down. Yeah, it's really quite beautiful seeing all the sunsets in the front of our yard. And so we named it Sunset Acres, and it's just this crazy, we do animals like we do kids. We just go big, you know. That hobby farm started out of grief after Evie passed. But I did know, I said to the realtor when we looked at the house, when Evie was still alive, I said I would like 2 goats. And it just sounded funny. Like, I know Dan was like, oh, that's so cute. All my 16 goats have names. They take walks with me in the morning, going through the woods. They don't run away.
You're a mama goat?
The mama. Yeah.
And let's talk about Little Bird.
Yeah. Little Bird is near and dear to my heart. And that started this year because, of course, it's just like another thing that comes into my mind. And I was like, this feels very right. Little Bird is it. And I love everything about the name.
I was going to say, I love the name.
Thank you. Of course, I've got chickens and stuff. So there's feathers. But outside of our farm, I'm a thrifter, and so I was thrifting one day, and there was this tiny little feather that was on the ground, and then there was a keychain next to it, and it said, with brave wings she flies, and that's on Evie's headstone, and I kept that little tiny feather with me, and I still have it. And there were just these little signs that I need to do something. I need to do something because I love being creative, and so it started. When we moved here, I was upcycling furniture and decor, and up above the barn, I made my own shop, and I would open it up a couple times a year. And then we had a grief retreat in our backyard, and I love to remind people that they're not alone in their journey in life, that they are seen, that they are appreciated, that they are important. And I knew I wanted to do some speaking. There's just so many facets to our farm that I felt like other people, it's our farm, it's our property, but I feel like it wasn't meant just for us. It needed to be shared. And so then I created Little Bird, and now I'm going to be hosting classes, inspirational speakers, even therapy walks for children and adults, one-on-ones with people who struggle, because the animals give no opinions. They're wonderful, and they are there for the petting and the loving and all of that good stuff.
I was going to say we should also tag on Little Bird in the promo, and also talk about that event you have coming up in September. Yes. You want to talk about that?
Yes. So I am doing this with another mom who had lost a child. She does grief yoga, among other things. Transforming loss into light is going to be our grief retreat on September 13th. And we've done it now. This is going to be our second year. And there's 4 women, and we all have different types of loss. But nonetheless, I think that's what's beautiful, is we're all different in our loss and in our grief. But everybody has something so special and unique to share. And so we use the farm as a therapeutic place. We're doing an art project. We're doing some journaling. We're doing yoga. We're doing lunch. We're doing a healing bath, a healing walk through the woods. Some things to really have that connection with your loved one. A day of just really connecting and slowing down.
I think that's going to be a great event. When I think about going to different conventions and conferences and clinics, I always think about it's a successful conference if you can pull one thing from that and use it in your own program. And with all those things that you mentioned and the 4 different kind of experts about dealing with grief, and really nobody's an expert. They're just learning more things on how to get through that. I think it'll be a great, sounds like a great event. And I mentioned maybe me being a fly on the wall down there.
Yeah.
This is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, and pencils and jot some things down. Here are Annette Kruschek's 5 suggestions that have allowed her to survive and thrive the loss of a child and to keep fighting on. And here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style.
You got it.
And you can hit a softball, right?
You bet I can.
You bet I can. Here's what you shared, and I'm going to have you hit these in 60 seconds or less. It's going to be sort of rapid fire. You're like the old Annette, rapid fire, and boom, boom, we got to do stuff. Here we go. Number 1, your loved one is not gone. Mm-hmm. They are with you constantly.
Yes.
Their life had meaning, so continue to give their life meaning by filling your life with meaning. Lots of meanings in there.
Oh, man.
So go ahead and hit that.
So life is about living, and it is meant to be lived. You don't have to have this high-profile job. You can make a meaning out of anything that's small, but don't let a day go by. My dad used to say something that I still tell my kids. You haven't lived a day unless you've learned one thing in your day. So figure one thing out that you can learn in a day. Don't let that day pass.
Number 2, find people to support you, and you found strength in your faith and weekly therapy. Go ahead and hit that.
So faith is humongous for me. I am a huge believer in God, but I respect everybody wherever their journey takes them faith-wise. Weekly therapy and not being embarrassed about it. Therapy is as important as sleep and eat. You are filling your body with somebody else who maybe hasn't walked it with you, but they are educated in a way that they can help you and remind you you're not alone.
I've heard so many people say everybody should have a therapist.
I agree.
Or
have one before you need one.
If you don't have a therapist, have somebody that you can talk to that you can trust. Number 3, never stop living. As you said, grief can keep you stuck in a dark place, but we need to use our pain to find purpose. The more you stretch yourself, the more you know that Evelyn would be proud of you. So go ahead and hit that.
So stretching myself is putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Not dangerous, but uncomfortable, because when I learn from every situation. Sitting here with you years ago, I would have been like, I cannot do that. I'm learning something from our conversation today. So put yourself in these uncomfortable situations because there's always something to be learned.
Number 4, don't compare yourself with others. Simply be yourself, and if you are true to you, others will take notice. Go ahead and hit that.
That is right. I remind myself, my daughter actually, my oldest, looked in my closet the other day and she's like, wow, Mom, your clothing is all over the board. You have got some athletic clothes and then you've got these wild pants, and that's me. I want to be myself. I want to be able to walk in a room and not be the cookie cutter, because we all shouldn't be the cookie cutters. We're not meant to be that way. So stop living up to other people's standards, because that's already taken. Find your own.
Kind of like you talked about that mold that was made of Evie's heart. Is the only, that's a unique.
That's right.
And be as unique as that mold.
Correct.
And the last one, finally, talk.
Yeah.
Share your feelings with people, because you never know who is hearing your story and will learn from you. Be the beacon of light for someone else. Kindness is a boomerang. What you put out in the world does come back. You put your pain out in the world for others to hear, and what you had gotten in return was more support than you could have ever imagined. Boom. We could just mic drop after that, and we're done. Oh my gosh,
there it is.
That is amazing. Go ahead and hit that.
Being a beacon of light for somebody else, it can be so simple as me saying, my husband and I had a really difficult time after Evie passed away. And people would maybe be surprised because they looked at us as this great couple no one ever knew. But you have to share these things with people. I don't know how much my husband loved that. However, when I hear other people come to me and say, I had no idea that was going on. Well, why would you? Because nobody wants to share that. But unless you talk about it, you can't help other people learn how to, I have some tools now that I've learned. And if I keep that to myself, I might not be able to help somebody else.
What a great episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your story and how your family is surviving and thriving is, and I probably overstate this a lot, but I mean it, is it's inspiring how things have turned out for you. Your story reminds us all to have coping skills or mental health tools in the toolbox when a family loses a loved one. Despite that, you have not stopped living and have survived and thrived. Our call to action. Annette Kruschek just shared her story on what life is like to lose a child at a young age. Here are Annette's 5 suggestions that helped her survive and thrive that time. Number 1, your loved one is not gone. They are with you constantly. Their life had meaning, so continue to give their life meaning by filling your life with meaning. Meaning.
You got it.
Number 2, find people to support you. Number 3, never stop living. Number 4, don't compare yourself with others. And the last one, finally, talk, and share your feelings with people. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts, Annette?
Oh, I have always so many thoughts, but first of all, thank you so much for having me here, share my platform with people. Just being in your presence, another Survive and Thriver, I look at you and I say, that's just so great what you're doing. You didn't retire and just say, I'm done. This is you're helping so many people. And if me coming on here and blabbing helps people, I will, it's been 4 years. And every year is just a little bit different, not easier, more manageable. But I call them contractions of grief when they come on. It comes out of nowhere. And then you just pray, like, breathe through it. I just want this feeling to be gone because it's so hard. But thank you for having me here. My final thoughts are just find people. And I look at my kids. I look at my network, my girlfriends that I've had since I was in 7th grade. They're my closest friends. I don't know what I would do without them, the support that they have given. People also think that you have to, when a child or somebody passes away and you're going to help them, they think, oh, I got to find the right words. Actually, no words. It was so helpful when people would just come and sit with me. And silence is so powerful. So just having that body next to me. But I need to thank my children because with all 8 of them, they've taught me that I can't fix them. They've taught me, Mom, it's okay to let me go through the pain. We're coming out on the other side. I got to take, the chance to say thank you to my lovely husband. We've been patient with each other for these past 4 years. We've come together even stronger than we were before. He's more than my wingman even now. He's always been my best friend, but I'm just grateful to have this life with him. I got to say thanks, of course, to my in-laws too. I have the greatest in-laws there are. And again, it's like family, friends, community, the hospital. They're wonderful. The American Children's Family Hospital. Just remember, you may think that you're not inspiring. People may think I don't have a story to share. You do. Everybody has a story.
I hope you continue to share your story, and I'm sure you'll have some people sending you emails and messages on Facebook telling you to keep doing what you're doing because it's inspiring and never stop living.
No.
Because you're helping
That's
people.
Right.
By leaps and bounds.
Thanks so much.
Yes, on our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.